In this episode, we turn to a part of security that many beginners underestimate because it does not always look as technical or dramatic as cyber attacks, malware, or identity systems. Physical and environmental controls are the safeguards that protect information assets, people, facilities, and technology from harm caused by unauthorized access, theft, damage, disruption, and unsafe conditions in the real world. That means this topic covers more than locked doors and cameras. It includes the design of spaces, the control of movement, the protection of equipment, and the management of conditions like fire, heat, water, power, and air quality that can damage systems or interrupt business operations. For someone studying CISA, this subject matters because organizations do not protect information only with software and policies. They also protect it by controlling who can physically reach systems and by making sure the environment around those systems stays stable enough for the business to function safely and reliably. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A good place to begin is with the basic idea that information security exists in the physical world, not just inside networks and applications. Servers sit in rooms, laptops travel with employees, backup media is stored somewhere, paper records are placed in cabinets, and people walk in and out of buildings every day. If an unauthorized person can enter a sensitive area, steal a device, plug into a network port, read confidential files left on a desk, or damage key equipment, then the organization may suffer a serious security failure even if its digital controls appear strong. That is why physical controls matter so much. They help prevent direct access to assets and reduce the chance that a person can bypass technical safeguards simply by getting close enough to equipment, documents, or workspaces. For beginners, one of the most important mindset shifts is realizing that security is not only about keeping bad activity out of systems. It is also about controlling access to the physical places where those systems and records exist. Physical controls are often designed in layers, and that layered approach is one of the most helpful ideas to understand early. An organization does not usually rely on a single barrier to protect sensitive assets because one barrier can fail, be bypassed, or be ignored. Instead, the organization may use perimeter fencing, exterior doors, reception areas, badges, access readers, interior locks, cameras, guards, and restricted rooms as separate but related layers of defense. The logic is simple and powerful. The farther an unauthorized person moves toward valuable assets, the more difficult, visible, and controlled that movement should become. This is similar to how digital security uses multiple controls rather than trusting one password or one firewall to do everything. For a beginner, the lesson is that good physical protection is rarely about one dramatic safeguard. It is about arranging several protections so that each one slows, detects, or limits unauthorized activity before the person can reach something important. Access control is one of the clearest examples of how physical protection works in practice. Not every person should be able to reach every part of a building, and not every employee who belongs in one area should be able to enter all others. Physical access should be based on role, business need, and authorized responsibility, just as logical access to information systems should be. This may mean that general office staff can enter common workspaces, while only selected personnel can enter data centers, network closets, records rooms, or evidence storage areas. These decisions matter because sensitive information and critical equipment often sit behind ordinary walls and doors, and once a person has physical access, many other protections become easier to challenge. A device can be removed, a console can be used, media can be copied, or systems can be tampered with more easily when physical barriers are weak. Good physical access control therefore supports confidentiality, integrity, and availability, CIA, by restricting who can get close enough to cause harm. Identification and authentication also matter in the physical world, even though beginners often think of those concepts as purely digital. Organizations use badges, keys, codes, biometric systems, access cards, security desks, and visitor check-in procedures to verify who a person is before allowing entry into protected areas. The purpose is not just convenience. It is accountability and controlled movement. If the organization cannot reliably distinguish authorized people from unauthorized ones, then doors and restricted zones lose much of their security value. It is also important that access rights are managed over time, because an old badge that still works after an employee leaves or changes roles can become a serious weakness. Physical access systems, like logical ones, need provisioning, review, and timely removal of unnecessary privileges. For someone new to this topic, the key point is that physical access management is part of the same larger control principle seen elsewhere in security. Verify identity, authorize only what is needed, and maintain that control as conditions change. Visitors create a special kind of challenge because organizations often need to allow temporary access without giving away too much trust. Contractors, delivery staff, vendors, interview candidates, cleaning personnel, auditors, and guests may all have legitimate reasons to enter a facility, yet they may not be familiar with the environment and may not be authorized to move freely within it. This is why visitor management matters. Sign-in procedures, temporary badges, escorts, visitor logs, defined waiting areas, and limits on where guests may go all help balance hospitality with security. A beginner should understand that visitor controls are not a sign of distrust toward every outsider. They are a way of making sure temporary access remains limited, visible, and appropriate to the purpose of the visit. Without such controls, an organization may have no reliable record of who entered, where they went, what they could see, or whether they approached sensitive assets. In physical security, small gaps in movement control can turn into large gaps in accountability. Surveillance and monitoring add another important layer because barriers alone do not always prevent problems. Cameras, alarms, lighting, motion detection, guard patrols, and observation practices help the organization detect unusual activity, deter misconduct, and create records that may be useful during investigations. Closed-circuit television, CCTV, is common in many environments, but the real value of surveillance is not simply having devices mounted on walls. The value comes from placing them thoughtfully, maintaining them properly, reviewing what they capture when needed, and connecting them to real response procedures. Poorly placed cameras, non-functioning alarms, or monitoring that nobody reviews can create the illusion of security without much actual protection. For a new learner, it helps to see surveillance as part of a larger system of deterrence, detection, and response. Physical controls are strongest when they not only block unauthorized behavior, but also make it easier to notice, investigate, and react when something unusual occurs near important assets or restricted areas. Another major area within physical controls is the protection of devices, media, and documents themselves, not just the rooms that contain them. A server room may be restricted, but laptops, removable media, printed reports, mobile phones, and paper files often move through normal business areas where exposure risk is higher. That means physical protection must also address storage cabinets, cable locks, screen positioning, secure disposal bins, locked drawers, clean desk practices, and rules for transporting sensitive materials. A printed financial report left in an open conference room or an unencrypted laptop left unattended in a car can create a serious security problem even if the organization's main data center is well protected. For beginners, this is an important reminder that physical security applies at many scales. It includes major facilities and critical infrastructure, but it also includes the ordinary objects people use every day. Information assets are often exposed not by dramatic break-ins, but by casual handling habits that leave sensitive items physically available to the wrong person. The environmental side of this topic becomes clear when we remember that technology depends on stable conditions to function correctly. Systems can fail not only because of attackers or bad software, but also because heat, moisture, smoke, dust, electrical instability, or water intrusion damages equipment or interrupts operations. Environmental controls are the safeguards that help keep conditions within safe limits so facilities and technology continue functioning as expected. These may include fire detection, fire suppression, water leak protection, temperature management, humidity control, air filtration, and planning around building design or equipment placement. Heating, ventilation, and air conditioning (HVAC) systems are especially important in technology-heavy environments because overheating can shorten equipment life, trigger shutdowns, or create instability that affects service availability. For a learner, the core idea is that physical security is not only about keeping people out. It is also about keeping the environment safe for the systems and information the organization depends on. Fire protection is one of the most important environmental control areas because fire can destroy systems, records, and facilities quickly while also creating danger for people. Organizations therefore use controls aimed at both detection and response. Smoke detectors, heat sensors, alarms, extinguishers, suppression systems, emergency exits, and staff awareness all play a role in reducing damage and supporting safe action during an event. The details of fire suppression matter because the wrong response can damage sensitive equipment even while trying to protect it. That is why certain environments use specially designed suppression approaches rather than relying only on ordinary methods. For a beginner, what matters most is not memorizing every suppression type. It is understanding the control objective. The organization wants to detect fire early, alert the right people, limit harm to human life, reduce damage to information assets and infrastructure, and support recovery afterward. Fire is a physical and environmental threat at the same time, which makes it a perfect example of how closely these two control categories are connected. Power is another critical environmental concern because many information systems depend on clean and continuous electricity. A sudden outage can stop business operations, interrupt communications, corrupt data, and damage equipment. Unstable power can be just as harmful because surges, drops, and fluctuations may shorten hardware life or create unpredictable system behavior. This is why organizations often use controls such as surge protection, backup generators, uninterruptible power supply, UPS, systems, and electrical design practices that support resilience. The purpose of these controls is not simply to keep the lights on. It is to preserve availability, protect equipment, and give the organization time to continue key operations or shut systems down safely when conditions are unstable. For a beginner, this is a useful example of how environmental controls support business continuity as well as security. A strong password cannot help much if a critical platform goes offline because there was no reliable plan for managing power interruptions in the facility where it operates. Water and location risks also deserve close attention because many people underestimate how easily physical spaces can become dangerous to information assets. Water from floods, pipe leaks, roof damage, sprinkler discharge, or poor drainage can ruin paper records, corrode hardware, damage wiring, and force systems offline. That means environmental planning includes where equipment is placed, how facilities are constructed, whether water sensors are installed, and how the organization thinks about geographic and building-related risk. Critical systems placed in basements or directly under plumbing lines may face unnecessary exposure. Backup media stored in the same vulnerable area as production equipment may be lost in the same event. For beginners, the lesson is that environmental controls often begin with simple, thoughtful decisions about location and layout. Good protection is not always about adding more technology later. Sometimes it means avoiding unnecessary exposure from the beginning by placing sensitive equipment and information where common physical hazards are less likely to affect them. Maintenance is another major part of physical and environmental protection because even good controls lose value if they are not inspected, tested, and kept current. Locks wear out, cameras fail, batteries in UPS systems weaken, alarms lose reliability, access records become outdated, and facility conditions change over time. A control that was dependable last year may be partly broken now, and broken controls often create false confidence because people still assume protection exists when it no longer works as intended. This is why organizations need periodic inspection, preventive maintenance, testing of alarms and suppression systems, review of access rights, and attention to whether the physical environment still matches the importance of the assets inside it. For someone studying CISA, this is a valuable principle that appears across many domains. Controls are not judged only by design. They are also judged by operation and upkeep. A neglected physical safeguard can be just as risky as a missing one, especially when everyone assumes it will work during an emergency. Human behavior also shapes the effectiveness of these controls more than many beginners expect. Doors can be propped open for convenience. Badges can be shared carelessly. Visitors can be allowed to wander. Sensitive papers can be left in plain sight. And alarms can be ignored if staff treat them as a nuisance. This means physical and environmental controls depend not only on hardware and facility design, but also on awareness, training, and everyday discipline. People need to understand why certain areas are restricted, why tailgating into secure spaces is risky, why equipment placement matters, and why reporting unusual conditions is part of responsible behavior. The organization should make secure behavior normal and understandable rather than assuming employees will automatically recognize physical risk on their own. For a beginner, this helps tie the topic back to the larger theme of information protection. Controls are strongest when human behavior supports them, because many physical weaknesses appear not from sophisticated attacks, but from routine shortcuts and habits that slowly erode the intended level of protection. From an audit perspective, physical and environmental controls provide a rich area for observing whether the organization protects information assets in a realistic and well-rounded way. An auditor may review building access controls, visitor logs, camera coverage, restricted area protections, equipment placement, fire detection and suppression measures, power backup arrangements, maintenance records, and environmental monitoring practices. The deeper question is whether the organization's physical protections align with the sensitivity and criticality of the assets involved. A low-risk public area does not need the same controls as a data center, records archive, or evidence room, but high-value assets should not be left with casual protection either. This is one reason physical and environmental controls matter so much in assurance work. They are visible examples of whether the organization understands that information security extends beyond software settings and policy language into the real conditions where people, devices, media, and facilities interact every day. The most important point to carry forward is that physical and environmental controls are essential parts of protecting information assets because they guard both the spaces and the conditions that make secure operation possible. Physical controls help restrict movement, deter unauthorized activity, protect equipment and records, and create accountability for who goes where and what they can reach. Environmental controls help preserve safe operating conditions by managing fire, heat, water, power, air quality, and other factors that can damage systems or interrupt services. Together, these controls support confidentiality, integrity, and availability in ways that digital safeguards alone cannot achieve. For a new CISA student, this topic is a reminder that information protection is always broader than software and networks. Real security depends on people, places, equipment, and environmental stability all working together so the organization can protect what it values and continue operating when physical risks or unsafe conditions appear.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.